and he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your fantasy football, sports betting, and NASCAR home. I'm Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. With me to break down race number 2 of the NASCAR season is Brian Twining. What's up, Brian?
What's up, Kyle? Yeah, I'm excited to have this race kind of right in my backyard, a couple hours north of me at Fontana. I mean, they skipped this track last year, and this is, I guess, sounding like the last time they run this as a 2-mile long course with, I guess there's designs to turn this into like another Bristol type track with high banking, and
which could be really fun.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of those races. I mean, I like more of the full throttle. Like, I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of those.
Yeah, it's a lot of quick spurts in a quick circle. Like, and if they get rid of this one as like a 2-mile, plus Atlanta's becoming more of a super speedway. They're going to be a thing of the past, and I don't know. It's kind of interesting. So we'll have to kind of check that out and see how it goes. But it is nice to have it back on the calendar for the year. Before we dive into this week's race, talk about our bets, talk about our matchups, talk about other things we are considering. We are going to let's talk a little Daytona 500. Get some thoughts from that race. I think there's a name front of mind who just decided that like it was his world and he woke up and chose chaos, and that's Mr. Brad Keselowski, who just decided like Harrison Burton, no, you're going to go upside down, and he was not playing around with anybody on Sunday.
Dude, I will say it was slightly poetic justice that Austin Cindric won the race in
his old car
number. Like, I think that was a good jab at the end of the race, considering Bad Brad showed up and absolutely ruined the majority of my betting card, punting his own teammate Chris Buescher late in the race, punting Harrison Burton. Denny Hamlin was wrapped up in the chaos. Brad Keselowski had one of the most atrocious races from a veteran's perspective that I could ever remember.
Beyond there, though, in terms of the cars, like I don't feel like it was like it didn't feel incredibly different. Obviously, there was points where they were kind of a lot more follow the leader, but I don't know that that's unique to this year as compared to previous years, and drivers that we kind of expected to perform well at the track performed well at the track, and ones that really didn't. Did you have any big takeaways, anything that you're considering going forward? Anything that like, I got to pay attention to this because as we progress in the season, there might be an edge there at the betting board?
Well, I mean, I think one of our season-long bets cashing already, and that in Austin Cindric cashing over a half a win on the first race of the year is fantastic. Yep. But I think one of the biggest takeaways that we saw was that Cindric is a legit driver in that number 2 car, and that's a good package for him to be sitting in, and that's one of the upper echelon vehicles. So I think Penske just kind of picked up where it left off with Brad Keselowski, and the Fords seemed to have decent pace throughout the day. I mean, we saw Chase Briscoe finish, what did he finish? 3rd. So and Blaney was 4th. So I think this year's manufacturer battle between Ford, Toyota, and Chevrolet is going to be a lot better. I don't think you're going to see Hendrick run away with the most wins this year. Kind of, we hit on that on our season preview show. And the cars, like you said, I don't think they played a huge role in any different style of racing at Daytona. But that being said, that's a super speedway. It's all about drafting. It's not really driving per se. So I think this is the first time we really get to see these cars in action with different driving styles on a track.
Yeah, and I think as we approach different track types, when we go to road courses, when we go to short tracks, how will these cars perform in those situations? It was interesting to see some of the drafting. It was interesting to see some of the cars get left behind as Packs kind of pulled away from some of the other vehicles. So
Yeah.
interesting to see how teams play that part going forward. Speaking of Mr. Cindric, who is now, I sent you this on Twitter, but over 1.5 wins. So obviously he's already got his one, is minus 190 and plus 155 for the under 1.5. That plus money, like Cindric was great. And we're both big fans. Obviously we used him a lot last year every time he made a cup start, but like as much as I'm excited about his future, I also don't know that I want to get so ahead of the skis because we have so many good drivers right now in NASCAR. Like that plus money feels like really good value.
Yeah, I think definitely traditionally that would be a hammer spot, but with the new vehicles, it kind of levels the playing field in terms of Cindric being a rookie going up against a lot of these veterans. Like it shortens the gap in terms of what their experience level is as opposed to him. So I think there is a good chance that he does take home another race, but I'm not for that number. I'm not willing to bet that he gets another win at less than 1 to 2. I mean,
like
that just
minus
doesn't make any
190.
sense.
But he was in terms of driver rating, he was incredible on Sunday. Right behind him, the aforementioned Brad Keselowski in terms of loop data, pulling this from Racing Reference. And then behind him was our guy Ryan Blaney that I legitimately thought we had a chance to cash those tickets. So we got good numbers. We were very excited. And it just, man, he bounced off the wall and good thing for you. Like he was able to keep it on course because I thought you were going to get screwed out of that top 5.
So did I.
Was like, that is ridiculous.
I will say, I did want to hit on that. Like that was an extremely impressive move by Cindric to be able to block both Blaney and Bubba Wallace all in one swift, like 100-yard portion of the track to take home the checker. Like that was an amazing finish.
Yeah, that was definitely a veteran move. But yeah, I mean, I think if Blaney got a little bit of a push, I forget who was right behind him, but got a little bit more of a push, he might have been pushed into victory lane. But it's interesting because obviously there's the teammates and then there's the people that have the same cars. And then so there's always a little bit of, underlying there. But it was kind of a bummer to see, Hamlin and Larson and some of the big names knocked out of that race and not in the mix on the way in. So, Brian, I guess with that being said, should we dive into some of these lines and look at who might be garnering some interest from us?
Yeah, let's do it. Wise Power 400.
No, not that one. This one. Why is that not? Oh, here we go. There we go. Kyle figured out how to do the live stream or whatever it is. I guess let's start here at, inside kind of the 15 to 1 range. Initially at the top of the board, any names jumping out, anything garnering your eyes and potentially your dollars right away?
I mean, we did this at the back end of last year, but how do you avoid Larson just knowing the kind of success that he's had at these types of tracks? I mean, and 4 to 1 is a pretty long number knowing how good he is. I think that has a lot to do with how early on in the season it is. And we're still trying to establish the driving style of the new car, but I personally cannot get there at the 4 to 1 number. I think there's much more value in the next group of guys who have all shown decent amount of success at Auto Club Speedway. So for me, that 4 to 1 is not something that I'm going to bet this week.
Yeah. So 4 to 1 would be the number that I consider it. I don't like you. I'm probably not betting it. But at 2.5 or 3.5, like I'm not. I can't do it. Even when he, as dominant as Larson was last year, that feels like a number baked in from last season. Kyle Busch at 8 to 1 is incredibly compelling. He has a great history of performing at these kinds of tracks. Obviously has a good run of success at Fontana. Does really well out west. The Busch brothers kind of in general tend to do really well, and inside kind of that 10 to 1, 12 to 1 range, he was one of the names that really jumped out to me.
Yeah, Busch, the first guy, just looking at the historical data at this track. The only thing I worry about with Kyle Busch is he is kind of that hothead guy who he's unafraid of contact. And although this particular race doesn't necessarily have a lot of cautions normally, he is willing to, scratch up the paint a little bit in order to secure spots. And I get a little worried with him, especially picking outrights.
Yeah, but when we're betting outrights, I want a little bit of Ricky Bobby to my driver. It's either your first or your last. Like, I don't care about the in between. I don't, if I have a top 5, sure. But in terms of talking pure outrights, I think he makes sense. I also like Ryan Blaney a lot at 12. I don't know that I like it at 10 as much. And I know, it's kind of, picking hairs or whatever you want to call it. But it really is a big difference. And if you can get that 12 for another driver that, obviously it looked really good at Daytona. So keeping an eye on which drivers are really comfortable in these new rides, I think is going to be key. But 12-1 on a guy that I think can, has a legit chance to win the race, that performed well last week and has a track record of performing well at this style of track, I think makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, Blaney for me was the first guy that kind of popped off the board at that particular number. I mean, looking at the speed data from the last race at this track over at iFantasy Race, Ryan Blaney was either first or second in pretty much every single quarter length of the race in terms of total speed ranking. He finished the race 19th, but started on the pole, was one of the fastest cars all day. And like we said, Daytona, Blaney had a legit shot to win that race, ran inside the top 10 the entirety of the race. And at 12-1, that's a number I can get behind more so than taking the leap with Larson at 4-1 with so many unknowns with the new car still.
Yeah. And has a mixed bag of results. Obviously they didn't run it last year. Michigan, another track with a similar, in terms of the 2-mile setup, got a win there last year. So obviously, and a guy that I think we both like, to perform well. And speaking of that iFantasy Race, Ryan's doing a great job with his content, and is worthy of your time if you're not following him on Twitter. A lot of good nuggets come out of there for sure.
Yes, and then let me correct real quick. Ryan Blaney started 16th in the last race there, not on the pole. And that actually brings me to one of the most interesting trends about this particular speedway is that the last 4 winners here all started in the top 4 of the grid, and 7 of the last 9 started inside the top 10. So keep an eye on after they practice and they qualify on Saturday, because that's where you're more than likely going to find your winner of the race. So some of the lower numbers may actually pop at the end of the week as opposed to right now.
Yeah, I think we're going to get a lot of shift, and I think the books are going to be really smart early and not give anybody a dramatic number. Like, a lot of these guys are 8 to 10 to 12, and by the time race day comes around, it's going to be a lot more separation.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Brian and I will be back post qualifying, and have obviously updated look at your betting card. Plus, we'll be actually able to talk DraftKings and talk DFS and talk about the drivers we'll be targeting heading into Sunday's race. So make sure you check that out. Hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell notification. I think we're going to try and do some live streams with the DFS, but it really just depends on scheduling, when the qualifying gets done, and all that good stuff. As we trickle down the betting board here, Brian, there's a couple names in this range right here that are jumping off the board to me, including the aforementioned Brad Keselowski. 40-1. If you can get that number, I think you need to bet it.
I mean, everyone else can take a shot at the number 6. He's defaming the number 6 that Mark Martin drove, in my opinion.
Martin
right
is
now.
Viagra.
But yeah, at 40-1 for a driver of his caliber, that's a difficult number to pass up. I mean, even if you dislike him as much as I do, that's not something I would not bet on.
Caesars is really trying to get the NASCAR money laying these numbers. Either that, honestly, or they just have somebody who doesn't really know and is just willing to get a little aggressive. But
yeah, and then like right around Keselowski right there, the guys right above him, the two drivers right above him, Christopher Bell and Kurt Busch. We both like Christopher Bell last week. He was running with great pace. Of course, got collected by the aforementioned. I can't even say his name anymore. The number 6. He just
my favorite weeks are the ones when you hate Joey Logano or Brad Keselowski, and I like them because though typically if you hate them and I'm on them,
they do well.
Things go well, yeah.
Yeah.
And when we're both on it, things go horribly wrong.
Yeah.
So write that down. Remember that for the rest of the season, because there will be weeks where Brian and I are both on, like the aforementioned Brad Keselowski or Joey Logano. And that's with the week to pivot off there, hard fade in DFS, and you'll win all the money. That's how it works.
Yeah, and so outside of Bell too, another Toyota this year, Kurt Busch. He ran pretty good last week at Daytona. He ran really well here at the Auto Club Speedway the last 2 races with a 6th and a 3rd place finish. I think this is kind of bad to say, but I almost feel like being the second car with 2311 is a bit of an upgrade from the back end of the Chip Ganassi era. So I think the Toyotas are primed for a great season. And Kurt Busch has a great history at this track at 30-1 or 33-1. I mean, even for, $5, $10, half a unit, however you want to measure your bankroll, is a great number.
Yeah. Yep. And Brian and I are going to try and, for the podcast purposes, track based on units. So we'll try and keep you updated. It was, kind of a bloodbath over there, but we did hit one of our season long, so it helped mitigate some of the frustration for sure. The one bet I will say, I don't know that I will get there for sure, but 100-1 on Eric Almirola is incredibly appealing. As iFantasy Race on Twitter points out, Almirola is 3 for 3 in his last 3 races, finishing between 8th and 12th. And just ahead to the as we'll flip over here to DraftKings to look at some placings here in a minute, but Mr. Almirola is plus 280 to top 10, and that feels like a really nice value and a real contender for potentially one of my best bets for the race.
Yeah, no, Almirola is a guy who's driving his last season. I mean, he's going to go all out. There's nothing preventing him from being a little more risky than we've probably seen throughout his career. So, yeah. I mean,
and I think the new car is good for him. I think last year was a mess. And I think he's getting into a better spot. And obviously he does traditionally well at super speedway. So I don't want to get too crazy and, go all out, but I expect a little bit better from him. And I think he's going to be in a good spot. And I think this is a good track for him. So, I think a lot of that plays. Anything else as we, are we going to go to Mr. Daniel Suarez? If you can get that 250, I don't mind throwing $5 on that.
I mean, the Chris Buescher number at 200-1, no. That's a great number. I mean, Buescher, like I said,
DraftKings says it at 35. 10. What is DraftKings doing? Is either that's a misprint or they're drunk, or I don't know what's going on.
See what I mean? Like, this is why you need to shop around, folks, because if you have multiple sports books available to you, never just bet blindly. Always shop 1,000. For the best number.
Yep. And there's multiple tools out there. If any of the tools that show multiple odds at the same time would like to sponsor the podcast, you can email me. I will, or you can get in those DMs at FPAOP on Twitter. Send us a message. We would be happy to take your money and pump your product as we talk NASCAR betting. So Brian, any other names we want to make sure we hit on before we jump over to DraftKings and look at their matchups and stuff?
I mean, at this point, you're getting into like penny bets, so I really don't think any more outrights would be.
Not trying to go back to Justin Haley at 500-1.
No.
What is Caesars doing, man? They're just printing money over there. All right, let's look at finishing position. Obviously, these are based on the DraftKings line, so use it for what you will. But let's see here. We talked about some of our favorite options. Ryan Blaney plus 285 to top 3.
I even like him at close to even at top 5. I mean, if you could try to get that at a better number. I mean, if Caesars is offering better outrights, you're probably getting plus money on that over there, and that's a great value.
Yeah. Logano plus 140 to top 5. I don't hate that. I think that's interesting. Keselowski at plus 320.
They're just asking to collect your money there.
I make my donations weekly, Brian. It's just a matter of where their donations are going. Happy to do it at plus 320 at 6-1. I've already bet Keselowski real money at 22, so I will be looking at some top 5s. When we flip over and look at top 10s, there might be some value there. 5-1 for Christopher Bell.
Yeah, so I was just going to say right there, the Kurt Busch plus 350 and the Bell plus 500 to T5, those will be seeing a small amount of money out of my bank account.
I love it. Yeah, I think Christopher Bell top 5. I think Kurt Busch top 5. I think Brad Keselowski top 5. Those are 3 bets that are probably going to be on the betting card.
I think right there, Austin Dillon, he's a very interesting study for this week because he's flashed in the past, but at times he looks kind of lost. Like last week at Daytona, after stage 1, he was in 6th, and then all of a sudden he lost the pace and he wound up a lap down, finishing 25th. And we really didn't know what happened. Last year, he didn't win any races. He really didn't have that many top finishes, but he's performed pretty well at this track. He's, finished 10th or 11th in 4 of the last 7 races here. So he's right inside that top 10 mark. And all it would take is some lucky draw near the end of the race to get in that top 5, and close to 10-1 for that. That's a great number for a small bet.
Yeah, and I think he was one of my most frustrating drivers from the weekend. So it'll be interesting to see if people are willing to go back to him at a track where he's shown some success in the past time. So Almirola once again 15-1 for a top 5. I think is a bet I'm happy to get to. Let's look at top 10 market. We'll obviously dive down as a lot of these will be ridiculously priced. Keselowski minus 155. I don't hate that. Kurt Busch minus 140. Don't hate that. Christopher Bell even money. I don't hate that. I
was just gonna say. So there's a bet I have already bet at an offshore, and that's Austin Dillon in the top 10. I got it at, I think it was shortly above that at plus 145, but at plus 140, like I said, he runs right near that top 10 mark for this race, and he's done okay at Michigan, which is a very similar track. So getting plus money for somebody to just finish the top quarter of the field is a pretty good value to me.
Yeah. I think that and Almirola are the bets that jump out to me in this range. Suarez at plus 280 I think is interesting too. But yeah, in terms of value, I think Almirola presents the most in kind of the top 10 market. We can go over to top 20, but my guess is we won't see a ton over there that we're really excited about. Ty Dillon at even money, maybe.
Even that, I feel like DraftKings has adjusted too far to the other side. Yeah. I mean, it was just at the beginning of last year and at the end of the previous year where they started offering this market, and you were getting long odds.
They were handing out candy drivers. For sure.
Yeah, so they caught on, and they're now definitely making you pay up for those finishing spots.
All Hendricks finished top 10 plus 350. All Joe Gibbs top 10 plus 550. Penske, Cindric and Blaney both finished in the top 5 at 13-1. I don't know that I hate that, but I feel like if you bet their top 5s, you could get a better number in a parlay, assuming your book lets you do that.
True.
Anything else? Any 3 Fords finish in the top 5 for plus 275. That's not terrible. Harvick and Keselowski top 5 at 14-1. I kind of like that.
I don't know. It's just so hard to get on those without knowing what like the parlay value is.
Keselowski and Busch are both finished in the top 10, plus 250. I don't know.
I feel like you get a better number if you were to parlay or just single bet both of those.
Yeah,
in a sense.
Oftentimes that is the case.
Yeah.
Okay, Brian. We ran through the board. We hit some winners. We talked about the things. Let's flip over and talk about our betting card and figure out what we're betting and where we're going. So obviously, we're talking here on Thursday. We were adding stuff. We will, like I said, we'll be back on Saturday once everything's been updated and the new lines are posted and DraftKings is all set up and qualifying's in the books and all that good stuff. But for now, I have 4 bets. I have Brad Keselowski at 40-1. I am putting 1 unit on that. I have Kyle Busch at 8-1. I am putting 2 units on that. Those are both outrights. Ryan Blaney at 12 is really tempting. It hasn't gone on the card officially, but I am considering it very much so. And then I have 2 top 10 bets: Almirola at plus 280, and Kurt Busch. He's minus 110. I thought we had a better number at DraftKings.
So yeah, he's minus 140 at DraftKings. But if you can get a better number,
I will take the better number that Brian found with our friends over at BetMGM. It's minus 110. So I will also take that. Brian, why don't you tell people what's on your card already?
Yeah, so I'm going to the Ryan Blaney route. He's my first outright this week, and somebody at that 12-1 or whatever number, anywhere outside double digits to 1 for Blaney this week, I think is a good value. So I'm going to lay a half a unit on that this week, and then I'm going to the Kurt Busch top 10 finish. This may get bet up. Currently, I'm thinking 1.5 units up to 2 units for Kurt Busch at that minus 110 number, and then Austin Dillon top 10 at plus 140 or plus 180 actually over at BetMGM, or even the plus 140 at DraftKings. I'm going to do a full unit on that. And then the last one, I haven't officially bet this. I'm still contemplating this, another top 5, but that's Denny Hamlin top 5 at plus 110 at BetMGM.
Yeah. Yeah, shouts to BetMGM, shouts to Caesars. If you have access to these different books, like, make sure you're shopping around. I wish OddsChecker gave us matchups. We'll have to dig around and find some good matchups because there is good ones floating around. You just really have to track them down.
Yeah. Yeah, and the thing is, like you said, it's picking the values, and it's almost as if the newer books to the United States market are offering way better numbers because they're still trying to get people to get in there. So if you like betting NASCAR and you're in a state that has legalized sports betting, check out these sports books because they have tremendous sign-up offers and they're offering great odds right now.
Yeah, and I know a lot of them too, like to get you to bet things like NASCAR will give you free bets.
Oh yeah.
I had a friend had a $25 free bet to use on NASCAR, so he was trying to figure out which driver to back, but just finding ways to do that, or even like a lot of times if you make a bet on the race, though, if you don't win, you get your money back, kind of thing.
Give you like a free bet bonus.
Make sure you're checking that out, using all your options, finding the best value. Because even like if you go to 3 books and you're the driver you like in a head to head is minus 110, and then you go to that 4th book and he's plus 120, that's value. That's how you if you can find those edges, that's how you win consistently.
Yes.
In betting sports. So, Brian, we went over our cards. We talked some numbers. We talked some drivers that we're considering. The only thing left is, do you have a best bet for this show that you want to lock in today that you're saying this is going to be my best bet for one? Because Brian and I are ultimately going to try and have 2 best bets each and every week. One for this show, one post qualifying, but at pre-qualifying best bet, do you have one?
Yeah, that's unfortunately for me, I'm not able to do this, so I'll be betting this at shorter odds at in offshore. But Denny Hamlin top 5 I can get this at plus money anywhere, I'm going there. So I'm locking that in right now at BetMGM. Denny Hamlin top 5 at plus 110 to me is a number too good to pass up.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mentioned it earlier, but Eric Almirola top 10 plus 280 is too hard for me to say no to. So I will lock that in. That is my best bet. And then when we come back on Saturday, might hit it again, might have a new best bet. We're trying to help you guys make money. Obviously, with NASCAR, a lot more variance, especially when coming from a super speedway like Daytona. So
yes,
coming into more other races, other tracks, it should be a little more easy, a little bit easier to dissect, but things get wonky. Cars lose wheels in the middle of the race for no reason, and to see it floating down the track. So,
and then have crew members suspended because of it.
Yeah, well, turns out you need to have all 4 wheels on your car to keep driving around the track. It's weird how that works. So that's Brian Twining. I'm Kyle Robert. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that best bet or that bell notification so you know when we go live. Let us know down in the comments your best bet for the race pre-qualifying.
Yes.
Obviously, we'll be back post-qualifying. Make sure you check that out. And we'll talk to you guys next time.